Hello friends, welcome to VOW IAS. Welcome to the main test series discussion of Vision IAS, and this is part 1 of the first test of Vision. So this test is based on Indian polity, and we can see most of the questions they are just directly on the static portion of Indian polity. So we will discuss the first 5 questions of the test. Okay. So before that, a small information, as you might have seen already in our previous video, that we are uploading Vision Prelims and Mains test series discussions. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and you can listen to these lectures at free of cost. And the document that we are using for this discussion is the summary document, and this summary document is available at free of cost for the first 1 week. The only thing what you have to do is register yourself. So just register yourself using the link that is given in the description, and you will be getting this summary document at free of cost. Okay, so that's it. So now let's begin with the first question. So the first question is about the importance of constitution in India. So this question is directly on the importance of constitution. So constitution, if you see, it is nothing but the basic law of the land. So you can start your introduction with that. Constitution is the supreme law. India also have a written constitution, you can just include this. Okay, and all countries that have constitutions are not democratic, but all democratic countries will have a constitution. But there are certain democratic countries which even does not have a written constitution, but they have a constitution. For example, Britain, New Zealand, all these countries. Okay, so the importance of constitution, you have to write it in a structured way, and also you have to give various examples as well. So important constitution, if you see here, the first one is it laid on the structure and the functions of organs of the state. Example, article 17 to 91 in part 5 and article 123 of US constitution. So here even you can even write about the judiciary, the legislature and executive, like that also you can write. And the second one, it says that it guides what elected government should aim to do. For example, DPSP. So here you can also give certain examples like the welfare schemes, like the right to education. All these things you can give an example. Okay, and also put limits on the powers of the government and specifies citizens' rights. For example, article 13. Okay, you can write about even the fundamental rights. You can write about the article 32. So various restrictions are placed on the government and how one can approach the court. So all these things, all the procedures are laid down in the constitution. Okay, and the next one, it provides a surety to the minorities. So minority rights, you can write about 29 and 30 directly. You can talk about the freedom of religion, all are treated equally. You can talk about the secularism. You can talk about the justice, all these things. Okay, it also may lay down certain duties. You can write about the fundamental duties in Indian constitution, so the moral duties. Okay, and also ensures checks and balances. Okay, so here you can talk about the power of judicial review. You can give the article 142 as an example. Okay, and you can also give the real-time example, various judicial judgments and all, various judgments of the court and all. So all these things you can just give them. Okay, right. Now let's move on to the second question. The second question is the difference between coming together and holding together federalism. So broadly this question is on federalism. So we can start our answer with the federalism. Okay, so federalism it is nothing but the power because of which the power is divided between the central government and the state government. Okay, that is called as federalism. And we have two types of federalism, coming together and holding together. These are the broad federalism, broad types of federalism, you can say, coming together and holding together federalism. So this coming together federalism, for example, is followed in USA, and holding together is followed in India. Okay, so you can directly draw a table like this, and this is generally whenever the question is on comparison, the best way is writing like this, coming together and holding together. Okay, so here we are comparing these two. So this is the best way. So first of all, coming together federalism, here bigger units, the smaller units come together to form a bigger unit, for example USA and all. Here in the holding together, the bigger unit just divides the power or delegates the power to the smaller units to ensure good governance. So we can just write like this, and here India, Spain, Belgium, you can write examples. So here all the states will have equal powers in coming together, but here unequal powers will be there. You can give schedule 5, schedule 6 as the example. You can schedule 5, schedule 6 as the example you can give. Next, now with regarding to the division of power, Usually states are stronger or equal in the coming together federalism, but whereas in the holding together federalism, the states will have less power compared to that of the center. Okay, so here you can give Indian example directly, the quasi-federalism of India and the appointment of governor, emergencies, the central government will have more power. You can write all those examples. Okay, and here you can see the states have the power to cede from the center in the coming together federalism, but whereas in the holding together, it is not possible because it is an indestructible union with the destructible states. Okay, so the states can be divided, the states can be bifurcated further, but the center cannot be, or the union cannot be broken in the holding together federalism. So like this, you can write the brief comparison, and then you can end by stating that both these things are according to the then unique needs of every country. For example, you can there give USA and India. Okay, so like that you can just end the answer. See, in these kind of questions, it's very important to write all the important points. Okay, so but for that you have to have right knowledge. That is also important, because if you don't have enough content and if you write in this table format, then it will become an issue. But when you have the right content, this kind of tabular format will fetch you more marks easily. Okay, now let's move on to the next question. So next question is the comparison between Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. This is the question. So Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, as we all know, so they are the part of the parliament. So you can directly start from the parliament. Your introduction can be from the parliament. So the parliament consists of three parts: the president, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. These three are important constituents of the parliament. You can directly start from that, because whenever you are comparing Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, that means you are talking about the Indian parliament. So from there directly you can start. So these Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they are parts of the parliament. They are part of the parliament, and they are the legislative bodies. So like that you can just start. Okay, so then while comparing, you can start with special powers of Lok Sabha. That means Lok Sabha having more power over Rajya Sabha. Okay, in introduction you can even talk about the people, or the members of Lok Sabha are directly elected by the people, whereas members of Rajya Sabha are not directly elected by the people. Even that comparison you can just state it. So special powers of Lok Sabha, if you see, so the Council of Ministers, that means the government cannot be removed by Rajya Sabha. Only Lok Sabha can remove the Council of Ministers by no confidence motion. Okay, so that you can start with. Okay, so the no confidence motion and all. So the executive is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha only. That you can start. And next, the money bill. So even for the money bill, the Rajya Sabha will not have enough powers. They don't have enough powers, so that also you can mention it. So the money bill. And next, the financial bill. The financial bill, not containing solely the matters of the money bill, can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. Okay, that also you can tell. And next, the Speaker of Lok Sabha presides the joint sitting. So here the Lok Sabha is given more power. Generally, the parties with more power in Lok Sabha, or you can say with more members in Lok Sabha, generally wins the joint sitting. Right. So next, also with regarding to budget and all, Rajya Sabha can discuss budget, but the voting for demands of the grant happen only in Lok Sabha. You can write that as well. Okay. You can even briefly mention the composition of Lok Sabha as well. That also can be one point here. Okay. Next, similarly, Rajya Sabha also has some unique powers. That also you have to write, the other side of the coin. So Rajya Sabha, what are the powers? So powers like making a law on state subject, with regarding to creation of new All India service, and also the removal of vice president. So these three are the important powers of Rajya Sabha. But on the other hand, if you see, though the Rajya Sabha has less power, it holds great importance. Maybe in a box you can write that as well, the importance. It ensures checks and balances. It ensures continuity in the legislature. Okay, so the one body or one organ is always functioning. Okay, so like that you can just even write the importance of Rajya Sabha here in a box. Generally, whenever you're drawing any box or any diagram, try to draw on the right hand side. Okay, that will fetch you more marks. Okay, right. So these are the important things. Now let's move on to the next one. Next question. So this question is about the judicial activism and judicial overreach. See, every year or every alternate year you will see a question on either separation of powers or judicial activism and judicial overreach. So have a standardized introductions for these kind of questions. That is very important. Judicial activism. So judicial activism, for example, so you, first of all, to start this answer, you have to have right definition. That is very important, because when you are writing judicial activism, if you have a clear idea about what does it mean, so that will fetch you more marks. That will have a good impact on the evaluator. So judicial activism means judiciary moving towards, or you can say, it motivates judiciary to move ahead from traditional precedents towards progressive social policies. So judiciary ensuring progressive social policies, that is called as judicial activism. So here you can write examples, be it the BCCA reforms, or be it the bad loans, okay, or be it how to handle the drought, or be it the COVID ones. So all these things you can write as an examples in the judicial activism. But there is another thing, judicial overreach. The thing is, judicial activism to a certain extent is a positive thing, but judicial overreach is a negative connotation. So judicial overreach is or you can say it is one of the negative of Indian judiciary, because it is overreaching onto the domain of legislature and executive. That is what judicial overreach means. So the definition is arbitrary intervention made by judiciary into legislature or executive domain. Example, the court's decision on closing issuing of licenses for new liquor shops in and around highways was the case of judicial overreach. Okay. So the even the NJAC, the National Judicial Appointments Commission, Supreme Court squashed the Amendment Act. So that's a classical case of judicial supremacy, but that is not overreach. So that is judicial supremacy. You can write that as well as an example. Even the Keshwananda Bharati case is also not any overreach or activism, but it is a part of judicial supremacy. So those things also you have to have very clear idea, because if you write a wrong example, then your marks will be reduced, right? But what are the reasons for the judicial activism and judicial overreach? The asymmetric powers, the PIL, the lackadaisical approach of the other organs, the globalization, active media, civil society, the concerns over the other environmental conditions, all these things. Even the corruption and all also you can just write them. Okay? But from where the judiciary is getting all the power? Article 142. You can directly write that. Article 142. Okay? So that you have to keep in your mind. So whenever we are writing such things, always try to write a couple of cases, and along with this, also write the article. These two are very important. Okay? And also here the last statement, if you see, sometimes judiciary passes order without keeping in mind fund, function, framework and functions. The 4F. These 4 things are not kept in mind by the judiciary because that are important. For example, cancelling of coal blocks. This is the classical case. Supreme Court has cancelled it. But again, how to allocate? Because that is actually within the purview of the executive. But how to allocate them? How to reallocate them? How to ensure that there is no shortfall in the coal supply? See, all these things are also important, but judiciary did not take care of all these things. So that's why the funds, functions, framework and functionality, these are not taken care of by judiciary. Judiciary just gives an order to the government. It is the government which has to implement that. Okay? That's the thing. Right. And also another thing is judiciary is not accountable to the people. Is that also another negative thing? It has the power to punish for contempt of courts. Yes. But it's not accountable. So accountability is another major issue with regard to judiciary. Though judiciary has all the powers, but power without accountability is something which can lead to corruption and all. And also it can damage the reputation of judiciary. It can damage the trust on judiciary. All these things you can just write. And also Supreme Court highlighted importance of judicial restraint as well. So these also you can just quote. Okay. So this is about the judicial overreach and the judicial activism, right? So judicial activism is judiciary actively involving in the social policies. It is so judiciary directing the center to handle maybe drought, to ensure that the bad loans are handled well. All these things comes under the judicial activism, whereas judicial overreach means judiciary going into the domain of executive and legislature. So these are the important things. Okay. Now let's move on to the next question. Next question is directly on the rule of law. So rule of law means, in simple words, law is the dominating thing. In rule of law, law is the dominating. That means everything has to function according to the law. The law can be fair or unfair, doesn't matter, but this law has to be followed. Okay. So you can say in simple words, supremacy of law. No man is punishable except for distinct breach of law. It includes protection from arbitrary arrest. All persons are equal before law, irrespective of their position. And the Constitution is a result of rights of individual as defined and enforced by court of law. So these three are the important rules of VOW DAYS is rule of law. So absolute supremacy of regular law as opposed to influence of arbitrary power and discretion of executive. So that means law playing a major role. Law playing a major role. Everything has to function according to the written rules and written laws. That is the thing. So whenever you are writing about rule of law, always mention VOW DAYS. Remember this. Always mention it. So mentioning these kind of things will definitely give you an edge and will give you a few extra marks. Next. So rule of law is reflected in the following provisions of the Constitution. Article 13 clause 1. Any law made by the legislature has to be made in conformity with the Constitution. Article 14 lays down principles of equality before law and equal protection of laws. Next, preamble. It contains words like liberty, equality, justice, which indicate just and fair system. Next, right to life and personal liberty. Article 21. The rule of law is also the basic feature of Constitution. That is also there. Independence judiciary is also there. You can talk about constitutional supremacy, which the Supreme Court talked about in the Keshwananda Bharati case. That also you can talk. Article 32, you have to mention that as well. So the rule of law is ensured through all of these articles. All of these articles. But on the other hand, in India, the rule of law sometimes will be checked for the fairness, for the that is called as the due process of law. You can then mention the Menaka Gandhi case. Okay. So, though the fairness of the law is checked, but the rule of law governs the entire country. You can bring in that kind of thinking into the answer. Okay. So these are the articles that you can mention whenever there is a question on rule of law, and also remember, whenever the question is on rule of law, always mention VOW DAYS. Okay. So you can start your introduction with VOW DAYS and the basic definition of rule of law, and then you can write about these articles. And also you can give examples whenever the rule of law is breached and all. You can give certain examples, certain judgments. Okay, that you can do. So that is about this rule of law. So that's it guys for this lecture. Again, I'll meet you in the next lecture, and then there we will discuss from question 6 to question 10. Okay, thank you. Jai Hind.